Welcome to the Gateway, broadcast live from United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM New Orleans. I'm your host, CL Thomas. It's nice to see everybody out there again. Tonight's guest is a special friend. I've met him a few years ago in in Arizona at a Paracon. We were at, I think it was Wickenburg, Arizona, and I just have to brag on this guy for a second because he is one of the truest people I've ever met in the paranormal, and you'll understand why when I get him on here. He is a talk show producer, a production director. He's done everything in media that you can think of. I think he does operations director. Ultimately, he's a talk show host. And the reason why I mention all of that is because he has a lot of dealings with the radio and ghosts. He's been on Coast to Coast AM. He's had dealings with Ghostbusters, just all kinds of stuff. And tonight we're going to get deep and dirty. So let me get him on here. Henry, thank you
Boo.
for being on the show.
Everybody. Thanks for having me. It's spooky season now, so boo, everybody. Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me.
So I kind of want to talk a little bit about you. And I know I have to ask, how did you get into the paranormal before we get into all the creepy radio stuff?
I always say I didn't. It was the other way around. The paranormal found me somehow. Well, I do know how, and it's not somehow. At the time, I was 4 years old. I grew up in San Francisco, and I call the house that I grew up in the haunted mansion because there was just so much activity the whole time I lived there. But my first experience was at 4 years old, December. I saw full bodied apparitions coming out of my closet. I don't know who they were, what they were, or why they were there, but somehow in my 4 year old mind, I knew they're ghosts. They're dead. They're not living people. And I did what most 4 year olds would do: turn on the lights, put the covers over my head, and then come back out until the morning. And after I did, I wasn't scared anymore. I was curious. A curiosity that to this day is still there. So that's how that with ghosts, literally seeing ghosts in my room. That's how like I said, I didn't go looking for the paranormal. The paranormal somehow found me.
That's exactly what happened to me too. And I always say that I kind of grew up in the paranormal because I started seeing ghosts at such a young age. For you, a lot of your listeners already know that you've lived in a haunted house, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we
But with
mentioned it a few times.
yeah, but you live in Hollywood.
No, well, close. It's Anaheim, the home of the happiest place on earth, Disneyland. It's really literally right down the street from where I live. Hollywood is thankfully far away from me. I don't go. I will tell everybody that's watching that doesn't live over here. Anybody that lives outside of LA, outside of Hollywood, you don't go into Los Angeles unless they're paying you, or you absolutely have to go to LA. It's too much traffic, and it's just a headache going there. So no, thankfully, I live over here in Anaheim, Orange County is what it's called.
Which also is home of Disney World.
Hmm. Yeah.
So you mentioned when we've talked that there are a lot of hauntings around Disney World, which is surprising to me. And it's
Yeah.
funny that we're talking about this because just today somebody else told me that they're on their way to Disneyland out in Florida. And I was telling them, yeah, that's just not a place I would ever really want to go visit. One, I don't like Mickey Mouse. And two, I just don't see that place as being something as haunted.
Well, first, let me correct one thing before everybody gets mad. You got him backwards. Disney
I got it
World is in
backwards. I do
Florida.
that all the time.
Disneyland is over here. Yeah, Disneyland's the original. That's the one that Walt Disney actually. It literally has his hand in it. He wasn't alive by the time Disney World went up. That one has more of his brother because he was still alive. In fact, that's why they named it Walt Disney World in honor of him after he passed away. But yeah, Disneyland, the original, it's about to turn 70 years old next year. So it's been here. It's been here in Anaheim for a while. Yet, I mean, we call it. Everybody knows it as the happiest place on earth, and it is. You know, when you go there, families, it's fun. It's expensive, but it's fun. The food is really good. I always tell people, Disney food, you can't beat it. But yeah, also it's something that obviously, other than the haunted mansion ride, something that Disney doesn't talk about is that it's also very haunted. Disneyland is very, very haunted. A lot of it is because of the deaths that actually happened at the park, which obviously they don't make public. And others are because of the land that it's on. There's um, Native American. There's three tribes actually over here, and like everything, they were a lot of the tribes that were here were wiped out, sometimes slaughtered. So a lot of that stays behind, like in everywhere in the country, not just in Disneyland, but Disneyland for some reason. And then also keep in mind that again, almost 70 years next year, everyone from all over the world comes to Disneyland. Everybody's gone to Walt Disney World or some of the other Disney parks around the world, but everybody wants to experience Disneyland at some point because, like I said, that's the original and that's the one that Walt Disney himself, had a hand in actually designing it. So all that energy, all the happiness, people that are sad, they come to Disneyland for a reason to forget the outside world, and you really do when you're in there. All of that energy in there adds to that. The other reason that uh, you're not supposed to, but the other reason why Disneyland is so haunted is because on two rides specifically, the Haunted Mansion and also Pirates of the Caribbean, and this whole Small World. I learned the It's a Small World ride. A lot of people they're not supposed to, like I said. So when nobody get ideas, they take people's ashes and they throw them into the water, into the rides at the haunted or in the haunted mansion. They just sprinkle them there because, I mean, there's one story specifically in the haunted mansion that it's a little boy spirit whose mom, it was his favorite ride. And when he passed away, she figured, well, he'd be happy to be here because this is his favorite ride. He's not happy. People still, even cast members, the people that work there, they still report seeing him, and they hear him crying, which tells you he's not happy. May have been his favorite ride, but I think he's kind of tired of seeing the ghosts and all this stuff all around, and he's stuck there. So that's part of the reason why it's so haunted. The others, like I said, are deaths, accidental deaths that happened at the park, and
which they
yeah,
don't talk about ever.
yeah, no. Well, they were reported the in the early days they were reported in Anaheim newspapers. In fact, they're still on record on at City Hall. But today, in modern days, in this millennium, no, obviously they don't report and they don't make a big deal out of it. And if anyone starts having having symptoms of a heart attack or you're sick in some way, and the doctors think that you're not going to make it, they fly you out of there as fast as they can because they don't want people's death certificates to say you died in Disneyland. Um,
You know what, though?
so
I think it would be really cool to die somewhere like that. Don't you think?
it would, yeah, but not for them because it's the happiest place on earth. You don't want people to think like what, I'm gonna go die in Disneyland. Nobody get ideas. They're not gonna let you die in Disneyland. But
And
that's part of the reasons why it's so haunted.
well, let's back up just a little bit. What the ashes that you're saying people are dumping into the water at the ride?
Yeah,
How are they? Are they allowed to do that, or are
no,
they just sneaking that in somehow?
no, they're not. Yeah. And I have some friends who were former cast members, and I know this is true because that was their job. And they came on my shows and they told people, "Can you please stop dumping your family members there because I have to take literally a vacuum and suck them up." So you don't want that. Can't always get them, especially when they throw them into the water. But when they put them on the rides, or on the cars, the little cars that people ride, it's they just get vacuumed up, like if they were just regular dust. So for that, don't don't do it.
That's really disgusting. What do they do with the ashes when they suck them up? They just throw them in the trash
Throw
or
'em out.
something, or is there
Yeah.
a mass grave somewhere that they put them in?
No, no. They. I don't know how, but they dispose of them. We'll say.
Interesting. Well, Disneyland has a lot going on anyway. The whole production of it is very magical in that everything has either a witch in it or some kind of magical aspect to it. Um, do you know anything about Walt Disney's life and why he was into the occult?
He wasn't into the occult, and a lot of people think that, but he really wasn't. It was just American folklore. Yeah, like we have Washington Irving has the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. We Americans since the beginning of this country, we have always been fascinated with the macabre, with the dark, with look at Halloween. Halloween is an American holiday. So that translated into what Walt Disney did. His stories, his movies, and a lot of them everybody knows. There's a lot of the original Walt Disney cartoons. They were taken from the Grimm fairy tales. They were just adapted into. They were Disneyfied. We can say so. A lot as if anybody watching us right now, if they've read the Grimm fairy tales, the actual ones, they know they are very gory, very dark, very violent. So yeah, he kept that part, not the violent. He kept the witches, the occult side of it. He himself, I know a lot of people think they know Walt Disney. You don't. He wasn't into the occult. He wasn't into any of that stuff. He was just a real genius with everything that he created, and to this day, obviously, 70 years still lives on here in Anaheim for sure.
Well, 70 years is a long time. So we're talking about around the Great Depression era that he started this. How did
Mm,
America perceive that back then?
Yeah, they loved it, obviously, because I never seen anything like it. We all know Steamboat Willie. That was the first cartoon that actually had sound, and that was a miracle in itself. People had no idea how it was done. They'd seen cartoons before. Where it was just the black and whites and no sound. But this one, Mickey Mouse was talking. The other little animals were talking. They had music. All of that, and it was just amazing. And then what he did with Snow White, that was the first full length animated cartoon. People just loved all this stuff. And then something like Disneyland, when that was built in 1955, again, no, before Disneyland, there were theme parks, but nothing like Disneyland. I will say Disneyland is not the oldest amusement park in Orange County. That's Knott's Berry Farm. Um, but even that one wasn't what Disneyland ended up being. It is very different. The reason why Walt Disney wanted to build Disneyland is because and anyone in Anaheim knows the story. He was out on a Sunday with his daughters, and he would watch them on the merry-go-round, but he would have to sit, on the bench because he couldn't. It wasn't for grown-ups. So he said, I wish there was a place where parents and kids could actually have fun. Oh, I got an idea, and we now it's Disneyland. So that's why he built Disneyland, and it definitely is that parents, kids, big kid, everybody can. There is literally something for everyone at Disneyland.
It is interesting though, because you have to admit that most of the material, even though it comes from the grimoire, a lot of the material is still the occult. When you look at the modern stuff like Harry Potter and all the stuff that they have right now, it's
Yeah.
very much related to the occult. I think they even picked up the Sanderson sisters with
Mm.
what's the name of that movie?
Which one?
That's based. What's that?
Which one? What did you say?
With the sisters. What is the name of that movie? It's
Oh, Hocus Pocus?
yeah, Hocus Pocus too.
Yeah.
They even picked that up.
Yeah.
But the land
Yeah, like I
itself,
said, I mean, that's always gonna be in. Huh?
go continue.
No, I say that not just Disney, but all of especially today, it wasn't always like that. I would say since late '80s into the late '90s, definitely now, there is more symbolism, more occult symbolism in it, and it's on purpose. Back then, a lot of it just was innocent accident. Honestly, they really didn't know, and if they didn't know about it the way they do today. Today, these people that are in the entertainment industry, they live and die literally by the occult and all of these things. Back then, not really. It was just like I said, Halloween is an American holiday, so we especially right now, it's like I said, it's spooky season. It's fall. It's going into October into Halloween. We love to be scared. Then quickly it turns around, and Disneyland actually does that still. In right now it's spooky. There's pumpkins everywhere. There's jack-o'-lanterns, and then literally from after Halloween, come November 1st, boom, it's Christmas. There's a huge
It's
Christmas tree in the
Christmas.
middle of Disneyland, and everything looks like 1800s Christmas, and it's really magical. Is the only way to explain it, and you quickly forget about the dark and the scary because now it's Christmas time. So all of that, it is there, and all again, like I said, another. I see it, I hear it. There's a lot, even here in Anaheim. There's a lot of people that think that they know there's Disney is this, Disney's evil, Disney is that. Well, Disney, the company, maybe, but again, do you have any proof? And if it is, what are you gonna do about it?
There's really nothing you can do about it. Everyone
Yeah.
loves Disneyland. There's a
Like,
lot of
I
people
mean, really,
boycotting
it's
it.
with anything, not just with Disney. I know a lot of people talk about well, Hollywood is evil, Hollywood is that, and what are you gonna do about it?
Well, I kind of want to focus on the land a little bit because here's one thing about California, and I know we talked a little bit about this as well. Um, California itself is very strange, and you've already mentioned that it's because of the Native Americans that were on the land. Everywhere you go in California has that feeling to it. I
Yeah.
live in Las Vegas, and even Tacoma, which is not even 40 minutes away from where I'm at. It's just really over the mountain. As soon as you get into California, it's just a total different feel to it.
Well, what do you feel? What do you mean by different?
It's a little darker. It's kind of like when you go into, the only way I can describe it, okay, New Orleans, right after Katrina hit, I was going down there to work, and as soon as you would go into the city, you would have to go through the barricades and all that kind of stuff. As soon as you started crossing the bridge and you would start seeing all the destruction, and then I know it's like you see the destruction of everything that went on, and of course that plays into it, right? But the feel is just darker. It's heavier.
Yeah.
It's it's between light and day. So it's the same thing when you're driving through the desert here and you drive into California. As soon as you hit the hills of California, you start feeling that it's like an uneasiness, like a heaviness.
There, I don't know why, honestly. What here in, like I said earlier, in LA, Hollywood especially, yeah, it is because think about it. If you think about it, how many people come here with dreams of being a big star? They leave wherever they're from. They could be from New Orleans, could be from Chicago, could be from Boston, somewhere in the East Coast, but they know they have to go to the land of opportunity, Hollywood, if they want to be an actor. I know you can do YouTube and all that stuff, but if you really want to be an actor for real, you've got to come to Hollywood. Not everybody can make it. That's the first thing. It's town's not for everybody, and it will eat you up and spit you out if you don't have a thick skin. Now, imagine what all that energy does. Everybody comes here, you're happy. You get the first no, okay, I'll keep going. You get the seventh no, okay, now you're starting to give up. You get the 700th no, and you now you have not even a penny to your name, and you have to go home with your tail between your legs, so to speak. Um, Imagine that energy that hangs over LA, over Hollywood, people that lose everything. They bring everything, and those dreams are broken here. So that kind of energy just hangs over the city. You can feel that outside of the mountains, the outside of L.A., Hollywood, all these places. I don't know. I don't. We go there sometimes when we want to get away from the city. I don't feel that. I don't feel what you say you feel. Maybe I'm just used to, I've been in California my entire life. Maybe I'm just used to it and I don't notice it. Maybe it is there. Like I said, I just don't notice it. I do notice it. It's very noticeable here in LA. It's palpable. You can almost cut it with a knife, like fog in London or in San Francisco. But over here in all where you stay, I don't I don't feel that. It doesn't feel weird. Honestly, it feels refreshing to get out of the city and I can breathe. There's no smog. There's none of that. I don't feel that. But again, it's maybe because I've been in California my entire life, so I'm probably just used to it by now.
Yeah, you're desensitized to it. But it's not
Yeah.
just, it's not just LA though. It's San Diego has a lot of haunted areas in it. I would say all of San Diego is pretty much haunted everywhere you go there. Um, if you drive up the coast, the whole thing is just like that. There's two roads that go north and south. There's one that's and I forget the names of them. One of them goes against the ocean, all
Mhm.
the way up to into San Francisco,
That's the
and it's
PCH.
very. And
Yeah.
then there's the other one that's more toward the mountains, but it's the same route. And I think is it 91? I
Yeah.
can't remember the name of
Mhm.
it. It's always under construction every time I try to drive through there. But that all the little towns that
That's the
you
strange
hit,
part in California. Why is everything always under construction? Didn't you guys ever finish?
it's job support for one, guaranteed jobs. But all those little towns that you hit, like Stockton. There's all kinds of them. Lone. There's Jackson. All of those have those really strange, heavy feeling to it, going
But
all.
Jackson, that's easy. That's gold country, And when you're talking about gold, the gold rush, it's all the greed, all the murder, the cheating, all that. That that created that. But if you think about it, I'm going to quote another friend of mine from my show, John Zaffis. A lot of you listening who are into the paranormal, you probably know who he is. He has always said, well, never forget, all of our homes, everything is on Native American land. So um, when you take someone's land, it usually isn't nice. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you buy it out, you make a deal or something. But most of the times back then, it wasn't in a nice way. So imagine somebody comes in, takes your home away, takes your everything away. Don't think you're gonna leave the place pretty happy. So again, all of that energy just stays there, and people feel it until you start filling it with happiness. Until you make it a home.
But somehow the happiness doesn't seem to permeate. It seems like, at least in some of the places I've been to and
Well, that's
investigated.
on the people. See, like I said, they have to fill it with happiness. If they can't, that's on them.
So Kaysen says they say California is crisscrossed with ley lines.
Yeah. Again, there's a lot of ley lines, not just California, everywhere.
But one thing about California, and I have to mention this, and I know I talk about this particular case a lot. There's a lady I know that lives way out in the country, um, pretty close to Gold Country. But the story of her land, from what you're saying, is true. So they found some Native American bones where they built her house, and it turns out she's owned this land since the around the turn of the century, I guess. And what happened is they pretty much leveled everything. It used to be like rolling hills,
Hmm.
and they leveled it out to make it into farmland. And now it's a huge almond orchard. And it's the only place in the world that grows almonds aside from Italy. It's pretty neat, but it's acres and acres of almonds, and the place is completely haunted. And it's actually a really bad haunting too. Do you ever come across stuff like that?
But no, what does she mean by really, really haunted?
Well, she claims that she's lost a couple husbands from this haunting. She says that she's cursed from it. I know we talked about curses and that you don't believe in ancestral curses. She believes that her family believes that digging up those Native American bones started it, and that there's elementals on the land. There are elementals on the land, actually. It's been verified.
Oh wait, tell her stop there. Just digging up the Native American bones, that did it right there. You don't have to do anything else. There's your answer. That's what did it. So now what you have to do is you have to find what tribe it was, and they have to perform the ceremonies, or that's just going to stay there forever.
So,
I'll say this, because what we consider quote unquote a curse for indigenous people, for Native Americans, it's actually a blessing. That just like we say our prayers before investigators, you do your grounding, everything that you do. That's what they did also when their lands were being taken away. They also did ceremonies, prayers of protection, and those are still there. Then they were slaughtered, they were wiped out. They never had a chance to close it, if you will, the prayer. So what we consider curses, it's not. It's actually a prayer of protection that still has power all these centuries later.
but she believes that the land was actually, because it was taken away from the natives, she believes that the natives may have called up these spirits to
Yeah,
guard the land and to
yeah, that's what I
actually,
said. That's it's a prayer of protection. They didn't call them up. They're saying, "Hey, they're taking our land. Can you help us?"
yeah,
So
exactly.
now it's kind of, if you really look at it, it's kind of like, okay, they took our land. I know that. Well, then if you stole something and the owners has an alarm system, why are you complaining about the alarm system? Is kind of what this is.
It's very interesting. So, I also want to talk about your radio show work, because you mentioned that you have a lot of hauntings in the studio, which is something people don't really think about.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's. I was gonna say I don't know if it's just me. I do know it's not just me because a lot of the people that were working there also and at these radio stations, and it's a lot of them. It's not just one. There were different stations. Most of them were in San Francisco. I've done radio well, not all over the country, but at a lot of different states and cities. Most of it was done in San Francisco, though. That's where a lot of the haunted stations. I'll call them. I could write an entire book on haunted radio stations, really. But at the time when I was younger, I didn't know what I know now. I know why they were haunted now, but back then I'll start with the very very first one I remember, and this is a radio station that was actually in a house. It was a house that was converted into a radio station. It was in the San Francisco, but not in San Francisco proper, but outside of San Francisco, a city called San Mateo. And um, I don't know the history of the house. To this day, I never found out the history of that house, but everyone remembers the kitchen was actually used as a kitchen. Everybody used it as the kitchen. The refrigerator would open. No one's in there. The door would open by itself and it would slam shut. And we got used to it. We had an I forget what they named them. Somebody came up. Oh, it's Bluey or something. Um,
Did they ever bring you a sandwich or anything?
No, no, they just opened and slammed the door just for no reason. Maybe I thought later, maybe it was the spirit of somebody else who worked there, and he or she thought you guys are taking my sandwich. Get out of my get out of my food. But I never found out what that was. But that was the first one when we that same station when we moved to a huge building in San Francisco now. This was in downtown. Most radio stations in San Francisco are the downtown area. Everyone's seen the Transamerica pyramid. Now the big I forget the one that's sinking, the big tower that's in the middle now that changed the skyline. But everybody knows the Transamerica pyramid. That's where downtown is. Most of the radio TV stations are all there. Always we always joke everybody that works in the industry over there. You can throw anything up in the air over there. There's so many microwaves that it comes down cooked. Your popcorn, whatever you throw up there, there's so many microwaves transmitting everything. But in that building, um, the station I was at, everyone, and I used to do what they call the graveyard shift overnights, like from midnight to like when Coast to Coast AM is on, from midnight to about 5 or 6 in the morning. This is before I knew what I was doing, and then they put me doing the morning shows. But when I was doing the overnights, I was the only one in the building, and I would always hear footsteps, lights in other rooms. Parts of the building would turn on, and I knew nobody. We also have cameras there, so we can see everything. It's the security system, so there was nobody walking around. They weren't automated. Some buildings today, even homes, when you walk in, it's motion censored and it turns on the light. We didn't have that back then, so it couldn't have been that. So there was a lot of that happening. I thought I was the only one, so I didn't say anything until a couple of other people said, it was around this time around Halloween because that's when you start talking about spooky stuff. And they said, this station I think is haunted, and that's when I said, really? How? Tell me. And they said, well, when I'm here doing the graveyard shift, lights turn on in the other rooms, and I hear footsteps. It feels like someone's in the room with me, but no one is there. And I said, yeah, I felt that too. So I knew it wasn't just me. It was other people that felt that also. There the one that I remember still to this day was one of the last stations I was at. It was, and anybody's watching from the Bay Area, it's KBLX. It's still there, not in the same building, so nobody go to that building there anymore. They're not there anymore. Um, the ghost might be, but the station's not there anymore. But like at this point, like most radio stations today, it's companies own 7, 10 stations sometimes, and they're all on the same floor. So this was in the evening. I think I was doing my show on KBLX. We had like 4 or 5 other stations that we owned. The last live show finished their show, like what you're doing right now. Your show. They finished their show. Everybody went home, said good night, and I knew I was the only one in the building. After the cleaning crew came in, they cleaned up the whole station, said hi, bye, 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 we're leaving, have a good night. So now I know I'm the only one. So I'm doing the show. I look over because there's a hallway there, and on my left you can see into the other studio. It's all glass, double glass, but you can see into the other studio. And I see a pair of hands running the console, and I paid no mind. It didn't matter until I realized, wait, I'm the only one in the building. So I said, who's over? They were gone by the time I looked back again. Went over there, turned on the lights. Nobody's hiding under the console, under the desk or anything. No one's in the building. The front doors are locked. So I saw that. That wasn't the only time. Also, I thought I saw um, from the waist up someone in the studio in front of me one night. It's again same thing. Like they were controlling the console, but there was nobody there. I was the only one in my studio. So, and I wasn't the only one. Other people said same thing when because this one was like a big donut, and then the kitchen was in the middle. So they said when they were on a break and they went to get their sandwich or heat up their food or whatever, they were walking into the building, and they could hear footsteps, somebody walking around. So they would come running back. They thought somebody had broken into the building and they were going to steal microphones or the equipment, the computers or something. No one's there. Again, we had the security cameras. Everybody would turn up the sound. Nothing, and no one could get in because to get into the station they had to ring the doorbell and we had to buzz them in. So if anybody was going to come in, we would know because we were the ones that would have buzzed them in. So we didn't, but there was still somebody there. It didn't happen to me. One of the last things that happened at that station is they heard the footsteps again, and then I forget who it was, but they when they were leaving, when the morning show came and they were going home, they saw a pair of shoes, but in the hallway on the way on the leading up to the exit. And they came back and told the morning show, "Hey, somebody left their shoes over there." It wasn't there. They all had their shoes, obviously, but it wasn't anybody's shoes. We left the shoes there for like a week. No one claimed them, so it was the mystery shoes, and it just happened to be after this person heard footsteps walking around there. So
They were
we
ghost
don't
shoes.
know if it was an actual person that somehow snuck in, or somehow real shoes manifested in the radio station.
I love that, ghost shoes. Well, did
Yeah,
you know the history of the house?
the which one? The first one?
No, the second one with the shoes.
No,
Is there
that was
something?
that's an actual station. It wasn't only the first one was in a converted house. No, but for all of them, the reason why they were so haunted is because, like I said, they're all in downtown San Francisco. And there's always construction going on. Even now, there's still construction, even though so many businesses are leaving. But they're still building buildings. In San Francisco, people that have been there, people know it as even if you haven't been there, you know it as this big city. Everybody likes to go there. You know the Golden Gate Bridge. It's a really a small city. You can see it in less than an hour. You can make a cross, go one way, you've seen from one end to the other, go the other way, you've seen from one end to the Pacific Ocean. That's San Francisco.
But
Everyone's
it's
on top of
like
everybody,
mountains.
so they build up there. They don't build out because there's no space. They build up. So they're constantly building, digging, and that is what digs up literally bodies, Native American bodies, because most of San Francisco is landfill. I think everybody knows that. From what's Market Street, if you're familiar with San Francisco, what is
Mhm.
Market, the end of Mission, the beginning of the Market Street, on to the Embarcadero, Fisherman's Wharf, the Alcatraz area, where the two bridges are, Golden Gate and the Bay Bridge. That's all landfill. So if the big one ever does hit, all of that is that's what's going to sink down into the ocean. But what other people don't know is that a lot of San Francisco was also, when it was called Yerba Buena, before San Francisco, it was also Native American land. So a lot of them were buried there because that was how they buried. Like we bury our dead, that's how they buried their dead. So when they built San Francisco, well, what became San Francisco, they just left the bodies there, kind of like the movie Poltergeist. They just left them there. So talk about restless spirits. That's where we get all this activity from. In fact, one of the buildings, they stopped construction. What they told the public, they ran out of funds. The story that we got, because we were the radio station literally right next to them, we could see them out the window. They found an entire tribe there that was buried there. So they had to go find I don't know if they had a chief or not, but they had to find the tribe. So they had to come do the right ceremonies so they could be at rest before they continued and could take the bodies, because I think some of the families were still alive at that time. So for that reason is why a lot of these radio stations were haunted. The station itself didn't have any history. It was the land around it um, uh, uh, that caused the hauntings. And there's a lot of people that are into the paranormal. You may not know anywhere, not just radio stations, but anywhere. Kind of like the story that you were talking about, the lady that they were redoing her house, the farm, the almond farm.
Mhm.
Whenever you start digging or removing or renovating things, that stirs up any spirits that are there. It's kind of like you go to sleep, you wake up, and suddenly, and someone remodeled your entire home, your entire homes. You're gonna say, "Wait a minute, where's my couch? Where's my this? Where's my that?" Same thing with them. They're used to things being a certain way. You move things around, or you knock down a wall, or you add this, or you do this thing. They get up, and if it's a cranky one, if it's a one of those get off my lawn kind of ghost, they're gonna start throwing things, and that's when people are like, "Oh my gosh, it's a demon!" It's not a demon. It's just a cranky old guy that you. Where's my couch? Where's my this? Where's my that? That's what it is. So moving things around, construction for sure, that's what stirred up all this energy, and that's why the stations were so haunted at the time.
That's really interesting, Henry. Well, what about the Native Americans that are still alive and live in the area? Do they ever intercede with the hauntings?
Only if they're asked. Only if people know to ask. Also,
What about like Bigfoots and all that kind of stuff up that way? Is that related to Native Americans?
it's cousins. Yes, it's their cousins.
Cousins.
No, really, they are. They don't see them as cryptos or these strange monsters. They know who and what they are. So yeah, they consider they're like cousins, like uncles. They're family.
I remember I interviewed a lady, and I cannot remember her name or the tribe she was in, but she was from the Washington area, and she was telling me that their belief was she knew Bigfoots by name, and she
Mm,
believed that they were um, they were from a different dimension, and so they would come through as like protective beings every so often. Is have you heard this?
no.
No.
Well, if she was telling me that story, I would ask, well, what are they protecting?
Well, they were protecting her, her family, her tribe that she was from. The land was a big one. The land, she said, that was actually what it was all about. She said every time the land was changed in some fashion, you would start seeing them a lot more. And then they
Yeah.
would go out and try to contact them to appease them and tell them it's okay, and that they can back off, it's okay, kind of thing.
Yeah, because I've had this conversation on my show because on Paranormal Perception, my spiritual consultants were from the Navajo tribe. Hero and Sean Clan was their names. So when they were on there, we used to have these talks sometimes on the show, but a lot of times off the air, and it's conversations that are hard for people, for Native American, Indigenous people, and also just us regular people. But it's conversations that in 2024, going into 25 and into the 21st, 22nd century, it's time to have these conversations, as uncomfortable as they are. There has to come to a point where, yeah, that's all the spiritual stuff from the past and all that. We either move forward or we're gonna get stuck in the past. If you We obviously can't strike a balance between the two, between the spiritual and the this, because some people don't believe, or some people believe in that, or some people only believe in technology and I don't believe in that stuff. So it's time to forget all that stuff, because number one, like all the division that's out there, that's also dividing people. You're my culture, my this, my that, my this, my that. I mean, how long can you be stuck on this happened back then, and so you need to do it this way now? Well, we got these phones, all this technology, all these new things, artificial intelligence. We're only seeing the beginnings of it. I don't think a lot of people have any idea how much your world is going to change with it by next year, let alone in the next 3, 5 years. You're not going to recognize the way you do this show right now, the way we would do what we do. That is dying, and it's not going away, but we're going to do it in a different way. Same thing, the way we live, the way we travel, the way we do this, we do that, the way we do that. I know a lot of people talk about the sacred lands, and we got to protect the sacred lands. Well, yeah, but we also have these things called machines, and that where we need that, and we either get what we need to, or protect the sacred lands and starve and not be able to work and not be able to do anything. So there's got to be a balance somewhere. And like I said, it's a really difficult conversation to have, because a lot of people aren't ready to do that. Because right away, one side thinks it's getting attacked, or the other side thinks it's getting attacked, and it's not. It's something that you need to come to the table, yeah, break bread, if you will, and say, okay, how do we get to where? Because future's coming, and Yoda once said, "Always in motion, the future is," from Star Wars. It ain't gonna stop. So we're gonna go along for the ride, but we got to start learning how to get along, how to respect, yes, but also they also need to respect that. Okay, That's you. Not all of us are indigenous. And it's been a few centuries now that we normal people have been here. So we got to find a way to get along somehow. Otherwise, how everybody complains that we're so divided, we're so this. Well, that's us. It's up to us. Not up to the government or actors or anybody. It's up to us. So, um,
You see that a lot, even in paranormal right
yeah,
now. It's an
yeah.
interesting concept to bring up because even with the case I was just telling you about in California with the almond orchard, I did call on Hero for his advice over that situation, and he wanted to come in and do a blessing over the lands. And what happened was because the owner of the property was very very Christian, she wouldn't allow it.
Mm.
So there was never any closing from that. So she didn't want any more investigations of the house at this point, and it was because her third husband was dying of cancer at the time. Um, so it was totally understandable, but there's no closing still. So she's still going through that haunting, and it was because that she couldn't make amends, with she couldn't come to terms with a different culture coming in to help. It was
Well, I can say, and yes, my answer is very biased because I know Hero. I can say that would have fixed everything for her. I can guarantee you that.
it would or wouldn't have.
It would have.
Got it. It's just interesting how it all is. Even in paranormal field today, there's still all of these divisions between the Christianity. You got the demonologist. You have groups like Sean Klein. You
Hmm.
have you just have all different groups. You got the Wiccans. You got the tarot culture. Michelle on here is from the tarot culture. They're very different, and it seems like nobody's really embracing each other. And so what's happening is everyone's kind of canceling each other out. And so we're not moving forward to what's next. Like we know there's a spirit world. How do we communicate with that world?
Well, that's easy, but what you're saying, you're absolutely correct, and I say it on my show all the time, Paranormal Perception. I do when we do the live events that I do. When I get invited, or like you, I'm on your show getting interviewed. I always say when people talk about that, the this person's different, the psychics are different, the ghost people are different. That's dumb because number one, any if we're into the paranormal and you are because you're watching the show that talks about the paranormal, so obviously you have an interest or a curiosity about the paranormal. You all know we're already seen as weirdos. We each other don't need to call each other weirdos or call each other out. It's like, well, no, it's just my way, only my way, only I know this, only I know that. We get enough of that from other people already. So we need to, again, like I was saying right now, together. We got to stick together because who knows where things are going. We live in this cancel culture right now. It's just like, well, you're offended me or that. What about when it gets to, well, I don't like people that talk about ghosts. I don't like people that talk about metaphysical. I don't like people that the soothsayers that do tarot and they read this and they read numbers and all that. What if we start getting canceled? Who's going to stand up for us if we're all busy fighting each other? So that's why I'm saying stop that, and we need to come together. Yeah, some crossover. In paranormal, I've always said the word paranormal doesn't automatically mean ghost. It means everything you just said. Tarot readers, numerologists, psychics, cryptozoologists, cryptocurrency people, people that are into prophecies, even conspiracy theories, which some of them aren't theories anymore. But all of that is paranormal, and yeah, the ghosts are in that also. So we need to stick together, not wag our finger at each other like, no, 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 you're not doing it right. I know this. You don't know anything. I know better.
Yeah, it's like everyone's kind of stuck in their own silos right now. And it's weird. What's happening is that because nobody's communicating, we're not moving forward
Yeah.
as the community.
Now, I
We're
will
just
say I've said this before. I think in season one of Paranormal Perception, when I first started, I have said this publicly many times, and a lot of people did. A lot of the guests that I had on at the time, they didn't know how to answer. And what I just said, that we all need to come together. The one thing that's really been missing from the paranormal community, everyone, from psychics to tarot readers to ghost hunters to Bigfoot hunter, everybody that's in this paranormal thing. We need to establish some rules. There has to be ground rules. Like everything, like when you play a sport, there are rules. If you touch the ball in soccer, well, then it's a penalty. If you walk and not dribble the ball in basketball, it's a penalty. Everything has rules. In society, we have rules. In the paranormal, there also has to be rules. There are, most of us know that what you see on the TV shows, that's a no-no. You don't want to go into when you're investigating, you don't want to go in there and start pushing them like, I want you to push me. I dare you to do this. Scratch me. Do that. You don't need to antagonize them. So there has to be ground rules. This is there. These are the basics. This is how we investigate. This is how what psychics should do and should not do. This is morals, if you will. This is what you do say when you read. This is what you do read. If you get something that is very private, and when they've given you, your client has told you that they really don't want to know, don't tell them. So there has to be some ground rules. Otherwise, it's just like what it is now. Everyone does their own thing, and there really isn't a baseline to start investigations or psychic readings or whatever it is, because everyone does their own thing. That's called chaos, like I said. So that's what I say is missing in the paranormal: ground rules that we all agree to and follow.
Agreed. And also, I feel like there needs to be some ground rules as far as all of the evidence that people collected too. Like right now, you have all these different groups that collected all of this great evidence, like EVPs and video and all this stuff, but they don't share it with anybody. It's all you lose it. It's lost because they get mad, they leave the paranormal, or they get old, whatever it may be, they retire, and then that evidence is gone. And I feel like we never move forward because of that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's again going back to you brought up the Native American tribes. That's the problem that they are going through, because a lot of their elders, they don't live forever, just like our grandparents. They're passing away. They're just from natural causes, from old age, and a lot of the teachings, a lot of the stories that came down from the old days are dying with them, and that's sad because that's how cultures die. That's how it's not just by colonization or slaughter. It's also they just naturally die, and the they get it. They want to respect them. A lot of the elders, kids today, Native American kids today, because we have cameras and all of these recording devices, they want to sit down with, the elders, the grandmas, the grandpas, the uncles, and say, okay, before you go on to the next phase, can you just tell the stories? No, it's not. No, it's not for sharing. Well, if you don't record it, if you don't pass it on, your family may have it, but that's the problem with the country that we have is, we are a melting pot, and everybody brings comes from somewhere. They bring their culture, but you also want to be. You come here because you want to be part of this culture. America does have a culture. We seem to have forgotten about it, but there is a culture here too, and that's what's hard. No matter where you are, not just Native Americans, where you come here, you want to be American, but you also want to keep your traditions, your culture also, and sometimes tend to you like these hot dogs, and on Fourth of July you like these holidays. You get paid extra time. You start forgetting your culture, but that's how cultures disappear, die away. So that, like you were saying, that is something that I see with indigenous cultures for sure, but also other cultures that aren't Native American or indigenous. Just they don't, the elders, the older generations, they don't want to share those stories, those teachings, the folklores. Like in my culture, the Latin culture, most people watching this, they probably have heard about La Llorona, but there's other stories, there's other folklore stories besides that. There's other cuentos, they're called, and people are forgetting those because again they get very Americanized and they forget those stories. Those are really, those would make, bringing it back to what you started, where I live, not in Hollywood but by Hollywood, where all the movies are made. Those would make us for some very good and very scary movies, series, or stories. It doesn't have to be the same, Friday the 13th 300, where Jason once again comes back and kills people. You kill him and then he's back again. So these are some different stories. Everybody's talking about representation today. That those stories are ripe for the telling that a lot of people haven't heard yet, unless you're from that culture.
so I know we talked about this before, and we got to get to some of these comments too. I've been ignoring some of them. Paranormal Triage, they want to ask is Walt buried underneath Disneyland? I don't know.
Yes,
Do you know that? Is he
yes,
really?
he is. No, he's not. No, no, no. He's. I don't know if it's public or not, so I'm not gonna say. His house is public knowledge where he used to live here in Anaheim. But no, he's not. He's not buried under Disneyland. No one's buried under Disneyland.
I always heard he was in some kind of container
No.
to be brought back to life or something. Have you heard that one?
Yes.
And
Well,
then
I say no because I do know. Like I said, I know not cast members, but I know people that work from the Walt Disney Company, higher ups, because of not the podcasting, but because of the production company. I know for a fact, no, that's not true.
that's not true either.
No.
Milkshake and Ghost, they're on here listening. They said, "Well said, Henry." I'm not sure. They're probably talking about Unity. Um, Milkshake and Ghost, I would love to have you on the show, by the way, so get in touch with me. Michelle, she owns a lot of stores through
Yeah.
Texas, occult stores. She says, as long as not hate, anyone is welcome. We bring people together. Gatekeeping is frowned by most. Um, and then that's all we have in the comments. I know that you have a Paracon coming up, and we can't buy tickets to it, but it sounds really interesting. I'm really impressed by this Paracon. You want to talk about it for a minute?
Yeah, we can't. It's not that we don't want you guys to go. It's sold out, so you can't buy tickets. And we can try to squeeze you, but then we'll really be like sardines in this place. But this is the fourth time we do it. It's called Orange County Paracon, OC Paracon for short, and it's exactly what it sounds like. What you would think. It's a paranormal conference with kind of what we're doing, what CO Thomas and I are doing right now. It's different speakers. This year, I didn't plan it that way; it just happened that way. I have a big concentration of paranormal investigative teams. In fact, paranormal triage. They're speakers at this year's OC Paracon. Um, but even though they all do the same thing, they investigate. They all have different methods, but especially different reasons. Paranormal triage, for example, I'll give them a little plug only because they're here watching. The reason why I want them to speak on at OC Paracon is because, like I said, they're an investigative team, and people watching this right now probably investigate also whether their own place or wherever. But the reason, not the reason, but how and why the paranormal triage does this. Brenda and Ryan, they're the co-founders and the lead investigators. They're also first responders, so they are the first on the scene on at accidents. They literally see people in their last moments before they go on to the next level, wherever that's going to be. And a lot of times, many times, that's what first responders are. It's not a happy or peaceful death. I think we all know that. We know what it means when you're a first responder. So because they see death in that way, they have a different view of the afterlife and death than somebody going there. Can you make this REM pod go off? Can you do this? Do it. They have a different view on it and a reason why they investigate. So that's what I want them to talk about on stage and what they will talk about on stage at OC Paracom.
Oh,
And then we
that
have
sounds great.
yeah, we have the other teams again. The reasons, sometimes the method, but mainly this year, the reasons why they investigate are what sets them apart. Like the first one that's going to start everything off is TAPS West Coast. They're the TAPS what is it? What does TAPS stand for? Transatlantic Paranormal
Transcendental.
Society. Yeah,
Transalina? Is it Transalina? I don't know.
it's not
Yeah.
them, not the ones you see on TV. This is the West Coast team, and they're all over Arizona. They're here in California. They're Northern California. They do things at the Winchester Mystery House here in LA and San Diego, and so they're gonna kick everything off, and it's just gonna be a Q&A. Everything you always wanted to know about ghost hunting, but were afraid to ask. This is not the place to be afraid. Go ahead and ask. They'll kick it off that way. And then we have Sean Clan. I mentioned him earlier. He's also gonna he has two things we there's it's technically two nights. Friday, October 11th is what we're calling preview night. That's different little events all over Los Angeles and some over here in Orange County. Sean Clan is having we're just calling a meeting of shadows, which is basically what we're doing right here. He's gonna be outside. He's gonna talk about demons, the darker entities and what they actually are. I know there's a lot of people, too many people really, that think it's cool that I like demons. I like that. He's gonna tell you why they're not cool, why you shouldn't be messing with those things, and if you are, why they're actually messing with you. more than you know. So that'll be that on preview night. Then he also has a panel where he's going to talk about his journey from about a little over a year ago to now. There's been some changes in his life and the direction that he's going in now. Not all of it's going to be paranormal, but paranormal is a part, kind of like me. Even if I don't want to do paranormal, I can't get away from it. Paranormal seems to always find me everywhere I go. So same thing with him. He's doing. He's always had an interest in being a filmmaker, and he does that now. But again, paranormal doesn't go away from him, so that paranormal is also going to be a part of him. So we'll talk about that in the on his panel. And then the one that I'm really looking forward to, because I've been wanting to do this panel on paranormal perception or OC Paracom. Finally, stars aligned and it happened and it's happening. Knock on where's wood here, knock on wood. Nothing happens between what now, 3 weeks to go. It's the women in the paranormal panel. That is we have 7 women now that represent different aspects of the paranormal. Patty Negri is there. She's always been at all the OC Paragon. She's a good friend, but she's going to talk about what she does. Everything she does in media, her psychic work, her author, everything that she does. Susan Queen, who is actually like a mentor to my co-host on Paranormal Perception, Crystal Lorona. She Susan Queen works in the metaphysical side of things here in Orange County, very well known. So she'll talk about that. Then we talk about the other two are going to talk about Nicole Strickland. She'll talk about not the Queen Mary. Everybody knows her for that, but she also has her books, her shows, like what you're doing now. She'll talk about that. Sophia Temporelli also has her radio show, so she'll talk about that. Then we have the new, what I'm calling the new generation, the next generation. They're all ones that have podcasts or YouTube channels. There's 3 of them: Spooky Foodie, Ansley the Spooky Foodie. I like her because she investigates, but she brings food into it. She goes to different restaurants in Los Angeles, Hollywood, and she talks to the spirits about ghosts. I mean, about food. And the spirits there, she's caught EVPs where they tell her, "We miss the smell of food. We miss the taste of food." And I like that because it's different than their usual "get out, no" or whatever
We're
EVPs you
just
get.
coming at them from a whole different viewpoint.
Yeah, yeah, and Cassie Askins, she's the newest one. She just started her podcast called "Tell Me Your Ghost Story." It's literally that. She sits down with people from different walks of life, some famous, some not so famous, some just regular people, and they talk about not just ghosts. She just called it ghost stories, but like I think one last week or 2 weeks ago now. It's I think it was a mailman or UPS delivery guy that delivered the mail to a building. Then he realized, wait, he called his wife. Was like, "Hey, this is a really fancy looking building." She said, "That building's supposed to be. It's been abandoned for like 20 years now." So we went back. Literally, like not even a minute. He went back. It was gone. There was nothing there. So he's wondering, like, did I time travel or what happened there? So it's not just ghost stories. It's all kind of different weird things that people experience. In fact, little tease, I'll be there on that episode. We recorded something soon where we talked similar to what we're doing right now. And the last one for the next generation is Angel Nunez. She also has a new, relatively new channel, YouTube channel called Talk Spooky to Me, where she goes. She actually, we were talking about San Diego earlier. She's from San Diego, so she goes to a lot of different locations in San Diego. She's gone to the Whaley House and places that people know, but also places that a lot of people don't know. Like if I was to go to San Francisco, I wouldn't go to Alcatraz or the stuff you see on TV that people know. I would take you to the real haunted San Francisco. She can do the same thing with San Diego, so that's what she does on her channel. That's what I want them 3 to talk about because to me they represent the next generation where like you asked earlier, where is paranormal going? Well, I think those 3 have the answer to what's the next level, what's the next thing in paranormal.
Well, you know what, Henry? I really wish I was going to this Paracon.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you so
welcome
much.
to go.
Thank you so much for being on the show. We are out of time. Where do people find your website?
Everything on paranormalperception.show.
And it's just paranormal perception dot. Is
Dot
it
show, yeah. Usually it's .com, but this is one of the newer ones. It's .show, SHOW.
dot show? So there you have it. Thank you so much for being on the air and coming on, and I would love to have you back on. There's some guests in the audience too that I would love to have on, like Michelle. You got to come back. Paranormal Triage. I'm going to steal some of your guests, Henry. I would love to
No,
have
I want to steal
you
some of
guys.
yours. You guys get a hold of me, and you can be on Paranormal Perception also. We'll talk over there.
Milkshake and Ghost, I've been looking at your material. I would love to have you come on. But thank you again for a great episode, and thank you for joining me tonight, Henry. It's always a pleasure speaking to you.
Yeah, thank you. It's always fun. Like I said, it's always fun when we just talk on the phone and doing these shows.
I know we spend hours on the phone for the listeners out there who don't know that's
Yeah,
what we do.
I usually call her for like one little thing. It's supposed to be like a 2 minute thing, and
And
9 hours later, we're still on the phone. In a
happens
good
all
way.
the time. You've been listening to The Gateway, your portal to the unexplained, the mystical, and the otherworldly, broadcast live from United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM New Orleans. Until next time.